Some teams are just looking to improve, get a little bit better, just make the playoffs this year, right? Because they're in a bad position, bad spots, whether it's money or just the roster, the talent. They know they've got years before they can start saying the word Super Bowl. Chicago believes that they have an opportunity to do that over the next few years with the roster and the staff that they have in place. So Caleb Williams, in their mind, based on the information, the interactions, what he can do on film for them, is spurring a lot of excitement around the league and those that are in the building in Chicago knowing he's good. In fact, I would even say their thought of Caleb Williams headed into Indy versus when they left shifted even more positively. So they already went into it knowing that he was obviously on their radar and perhaps maybe some even believing, yes, it's an automatic number one pick here, but leaving even more or have joined that camp of believing he's the guy. So while I know it's probably hard, to let go and move on, why not let go and move on to something that could perhaps be better and great for the city?
You mentioned those interactions. One of those interactions was obviously the official visit with him at the combine, right? And everyone's in there, including Kevin Warren, President Kevin Warren. And I guess I'm just curious what you make of that, like how the league interprets that in a sense, because I wasn't surprised by it, but I think some observers are in a sense. Like I would be surprised if he wasn't in that meeting. So what do you make of Kevin Warren's active participation, I guess, in those interviews?
In most cases, I would say to you, of course, the team president is in there because it's a collaboration and everybody wants to get their thoughts and their ideas and they want to study it. And everyone just wants the experience, knowing that it is such a significant investment and decision that's going to be made for a franchise for the future. But I actually believe in Chicago, Kevin Warren being in there is important. And obviously, it makes sense because he is going to have so much power in this decision. Yes, the football side to this, we'll call them, the coaches, player personnel people. Yeah, they're all going to have their presentations and discuss why this guy is the guy. And they're going to make their recommendations. But at the end of the day, I believe Kevin Warren has a tremendous amount of influence on what the Bears are going to do. And it's the belief that they have from ownership down in his ability to do that. So Kevin Warren sitting in there, I think should be cheered by fans as well, because they're going to lean on Kevin Warren's years of experience, in St. Louis, in Minnesota, to help guide them in this process and help, make sure they're not going to make mistakes and not buy into the wrong things, but perhaps the right. So I don't think it's bizarre. The Commanders had their owner, Josh Harris, sitting in. I've heard of this for years. Every year there's always teams that just go a little bit stronger in who they want in the meetings. I mean, remember Carolina last year? I mean, they had like the owner's cousins there. It was ridiculous in terms of, and I say ridiculous in terms of just the amount of people, but it's not, because this is that important. And you want as many people that are part of this to be there.
And if you're Caleb Williams, I imagine having the team president in there. Like if you're Caleb Williams, you're trying to figure out if this organization wants to win, as he said, or is headed that direction. There's the boss right there.
What'd you make of that, of that comment? Because I read it and I went, that's a interesting way to respond. But then I watched it and it sounded differently to me. What was your take on that?
I guess my number one takeaway is that he's trying to figure out the best situation for him. And whether that or not that means he's got to kind of force the team's hand on things, we'll see. But I think he's trying to feel out the teams. Like I thought it was important that he also mentioned that the Bears have also like a very good defense. He mentioned their record. He mentioned they're not a typical first overall pick. Like that stood out to me in context of what you're talking about.